Alexander Isak is included in Sweden's squad for their upcoming World Cup qualifiers, despite not featuring for Newcastle once this season. Hello, welcome to Transfer Talk. What a window it has been already, and with 5 days remaining, we look set for a thrilling end. Alexander Isak hasn't got his move yet, but will it happen? We'll discuss that and plenty more coming for you this hour. Also coming up, Mikel Arteta's trying to add to his defence. Will we see Piero Hincapié join the club? Chelsea could be busy in the lead up to the deadline with the focus on outgoings. Will Nicholas Jackson find a new club? And despite signing Mads Hermansen earlier this month, West Ham go back in for goalkeeper John Victor. A very good afternoon to you at home and welcome to former Bournemouth defender Charlie Daniels is with us. It's great to have you with us, Charlie.
Thank you, I'm excited. And
our reporter, of course, James. Sorry, you don't get as big a welcome, James. It's great to have you as well.
I'm not playing in the Premier League.
Right, just quick news of a done deal into us. Borussia Dortmund have now completed the loan signing of Chelsea defender Aaron Anselmino. But right, let's start with Newcastle and Alexander Isak, who has been added to Sweden's international squad for their upcoming World Cup qualifiers. Keith Downey is at St James's Park for us. Keith, Alexander Isak met with the club's co-owners on Monday. He's now been called up to the Sweden squad. So where do we stand on this one?
Yeah, look, I don't think there's any surprise that Alexander Isak has been called up to the Sweden squad. Yes, we know he has been training on his own for a number of weeks now, but of course he's a Swedish international. They will want to use him in their upcoming matches against Slovenia and Kosovo, and I was expecting that. I think I would have been more surprised had Alexander Isak not been called up to that game. He probably needs a little bit of normality given everything that's going on and has been going on throughout this protracted summer potential sale to Liverpool. But you ask me where we stand with it right now. Look, it's probably the exact same place as where we stood yesterday, because it's one of these situations where for Alexander Isak to move to Liverpool, a certain number of dominoes need to fall, or a certain number of things need to happen to allow that to take place. Look, we know Newcastle are looking for replacements. They've actively been working away in the transfer market all summer long to try and bring in a replacement for Alexander Isak to allow him to leave. They tried for Benjamin Sesko, of course that fell through. They tried for Hugo Ekitike, that fell through. And now they're trying for Wolves' Jørgen Strand Larsen, as well as Brentford's Johan Wissa. So I still feel that if one of these situations, or maybe two of them, get to a point where they're closer about to happen, that may change things regarding Alexander Isak. He had the meeting, you're right, on Monday at his home here in Newcastle, alongside a delegation from the PIF, who of course own Newcastle United, and Jamie Rubin, one of the club's other directors. He had that meeting. I'm told there was no resolution from that meeting. It wasn't like they came out of that and they decided to sign a new contract and carry on with the season. That is not the case. So the stalemate remains, and you have to say, with just 5-6 days left of the transfer window to go, if that stalemate continues, there still is a chance that Alexander Isak could leave Newcastle United by the end of this window for Liverpool. But of course Liverpool have to make a bid that's acceptable to Newcastle, and I would suspect Newcastle need to get in at least one, potentially two replacements, because they are so light in strikers at this moment in time.
Yeah, we'll get into potential replacements in just a second, Keith. Like you say, there's only 5 days to go in the window. Now, even if the clubs could agree a fee, is there time to do it, given we're talking about such a large sum of money?
Yeah, I think there is. Look, I think there is. I think with a situation like this, look, it's been spoken about all summer long, hasn't it? We know the situation. I think Liverpool know what Newcastle are looking for. Newcastle know what they would be looking for a deal to get done. And although it would be a British transfer record, a Premier League transfer record, remember they've already had £110 million plus £7 million in add-ons turned down round about 4 weeks ago. That would have been a record in itself, so that's been turned down. It's going to be more than that. It will be a record, although it's a huge transfer, eye-watering sums of money. I still think, because everything would be okay on Isak's side, I think there'd be no issue with personal terms, for example. I think they could weirdly actually push it through quite quickly. I think the thing that's holding it up is Newcastle's attempts to bring in a replacement or replacements, because the players that they're looking at, their clubs need to bring in replacements. So it's like a domino effect at the moment, and it's the sort of thing where there's a stalemate right now. You know, it feels like we're waiting and we're waiting, but I think it will just take one thing to fall into place for things to move, and we could still see Alexander Isak leave. But, of course, I think all options are open, and we could still see Alexander Isak remain here on Tyneside as well. Look, one thing's for sure, it's going to be a fascinating last few days of the transfer window as we tick down to the deadline at 7 p.m. on Monday evening.
Keith, you've mentioned, obviously, potential replacements. Strand Larsen, they're not having much luck agreeing a deal with Wolves as it stands, but feels like this is maybe a replacement for Callum Wilson. And if so, it's a big fee or potential fee for a backup option, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, look, that's the noises coming out of the football club here at Newcastle, is that he would be a replacement for Callum Wilson. Callum Wilson, of course, left and is yet to be replaced. Of course, Newcastle playing without Isak at the moment, so they don't have a recognised number 9. Anthony Gordon played in that position against Liverpool here on Monday night and got himself sent off. He's missing for the next 3 matches, so they're even more light than they were before. They've just got young William Asula, who of course scored here, and I think will probably be given an opportunity against Leeds at the weekend. In terms of the fee for Strand Larsen, you're right, it's big, isn't it? They've already had one bid on Monday turn down, £50 million, and then they returned to the table last night with a second offer, £55 million for the Norwegian international striker, again turned down by Wolves. I think the player is open to the move, and while he's not agitating to leave like we see with both Isak and Wissa at their respective clubs, I think he would be open to a move here to Newcastle United. But again, I think for Wolves, they want to make sure it's a fee they're acceptable with. They're clearly not happy with 55. They want more than that, and they would need to get a replacement in themselves as well. So look, George Mendes, who works as an advisor for the club, I think furiously working away in the background to try and see if they can bring in a replacement to allow Strand Larsen to go. But as yet, Newcastle haven't agreed a fee either. So it's very similar to the situation with Wissa at Brentford, other than Wissa's refusing to essentially play for Brentford, or has been up until now. But Larsen clearly is playing, scored 2 goals against West Ham United last night, and looks like he's fully committed to the cause. So doing things a bit differently to what we see from both Alexander Isak and Johan Wissa. But again, I do think if one or two of these dominoes fall, we might see a quick movement in the whole transfer market and things begin to fall into place.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Keith. Right, let's get stuck into this then, Charlie. Just first of all, Alexander Isak, what have you made, as a former player, what have you made of this whole Alexander Isak situation?
Yeah, it's been a big transfer saga throughout the whole summer. I think if the game wasn't on Monday, if Liverpool were playing Newcastle later on in the season, I think either a deal would have been done or not done quicker. I think now the game's over and the stuff like that, I think the talks have happened, and now a conclusion will happen obviously before the end of the season now, because there's so many domino effects that happen off this. You say if Newcastle do go in for Strand Larsen, now Wolves have got to look for a striker as well. So there's so many things in place, but Newcastle I don't think will let him go if there's an offer accepted before getting a striker in.
From a player perspective, can you understand? Let's think of from Alexander Isak's perspective and everything he's chosen to do personally and sort of during this summer. Do you understand his frustrations where he's been saying, he's been promised certain things that haven't then happened? So do you understand it from his point of view as well as the other one?
Yeah, I mean, there's two sides to every story, isn't there? And listen, no one really knows what was said, what wasn't said. But Alexander Isak's fully committed to his priorities and his beliefs and what was said to him. So. If that's the case, that's how he feels, and we can't begrudge someone like that. But as I said, Newcastle are, say, the owners. They control where he can go and can't go. So, and if the talks have gone well and everything gets sorted out, then I'm sure he will go with everyone's best wishes, because he's a fantastic player. But ultimately, Newcastle want him to stay because, say, he is one of the best strikers if in the Premier League, if not in the world. So why wouldn't you want him to stay?
I mean, James, do you see any world in which Alexander Isak now stays at Newcastle?
Well, I think if they don't get the money which they feel he's worth and they can't find a replacement, so two things really need to happen. Liverpool need to come in with a bid which Newcastle feel is acceptable. They value him at £150 million. I'm not sure it will necessarily take that, because you've got a very unhappy player, and if he's not willing to play, yes, he's got 3 years on his contract. So Newcastle, from a business point of view, have put themselves in a brilliant position. But ultimately, if the player refuses to play, yes, you can fine him, you can do what you want. But ultimately, the player power is going to win here if Liverpool come in with a suitable offer. But crucially, Newcastle need to find alternative options. It's just whether or not they'd see signing Wissa and Strand Larsen, if they can get those two deals done, which they don't look close to doing at the moment, and they say, right, we'll take a bit of a profit with the Isak money and we'll go into the season with those two as our frontline strikers, and whether or not I think that is acceptable, because at this moment in time, they're not going to sign a Alexander Isak replacement who is world class and who guarantees 20 goals a season, which is what this man has done over the last 2 seasons.
Well, it's interesting, actually. Do you think Wissa and Strand Larsen, Charlie, are probably as good as you're going to get for Alexander Isak? Because also, when you look at both their seasons, if you take away Alexander Isak's penalties, they scored a very similar amount, him and Wissa, last season. So when you look at those two that they're going to bring in to replace Isak, is that as good as they're going to get?
I think what the Newcastle are looking for at the end of the window is options. So when they go from September all the way through to January, they need options up the front of the pitch. And like you say, there's goals all around their squad. So Isak's going to be a massive miss, not only for his goals but for his play. But if they can have different options and different people scoring, chipping in with goals, I'm sure they'll be happy with it.
What about Eddie Howe then? As a man that has worked under Eddie Howe, you obviously worked under him for so many years. What's he like as a manager, just first of all?
You know, he's really good. He's first and foremost, he's a family man. He cares about his players. He understands, he listens, and he wants their best interest in heart. And listen, his biggest asset is developing players and making them better. I mean, you can see from where Newcastle was when he first took over to where they are now, the increase in, I'm sure, in every single player, not only the players that you see, but every single player in the squad, I'm sure, has got better through his work rate. Not only him, but obviously all his staff. And listen, everyone who works with him will say the same thing. So he'll be just want this window ended, knowing him. He just wants everything, wherever Isak stays, Isak goes. If he gets more players, he just wants this window ending, so he knows he's got his squad and he can work with them to the next window. Yeah,
and of course they've got Champions League football as well to look forward to at St James's Park this season. Will this be hurting Eddie Howe? You know, he's had to come out. It's not a situation that's ideal for everyone involved, and having to come out and talk to the media and front up, because he's the only one that really does that. Will he be hurting, do you think?
That's a tough question. I think it's like any manager's role. I mean, he'll be disappointed in probably the way everyone's gone about it. But like I said before, I think he just wants his window to end. He wants his squad together, and then whatever he has, I know he'll work with them to the best of his ability. It's
been a frustrating window, though, James, hasn't it, for Eddie Howe? I mean, he's come out and said that himself.
I mean, it has been frustrating in some senses, but when you look at the goalkeeper department, defensive department, midfield department, they're actually better than they were last season. So you can argue it has been successful on that front. Clearly, right now, they're very short when it comes to strike options, because Anthony Gordon's now out for 3 matches. Callum Wilson's departed and hasn't been replaced. So, in a way, there'll be immense frustration. But in a way, Newcastle fans can also be encouraged that they've been in the market for these type of players. They've been going in for some of the best players. They've been going against the likes of Chelsea and Manchester United. Things haven't gone their way with those deals. But I think Newcastle fans would rather than be going after these players and going after players with slightly lesser ability. So it has been frustrating. But on paper, they actually are in a really good spot. But clearly, strikers, the issue.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think if you take the Isak situation out of it, I think they've had a good window in terms of the recruitment they've made. Jacob Ramsey coming in now, they've got an actually really good squad. And I say, if Isak stays, it just makes them even stronger. And if they bring in 2 more players for 1 player, again, their squad gets better. So I agree. If I think they've had a pretty good window if you take the Isak situation out of it.
And just finally, that performance, I know albeit they lost the game in the last second, but that performance will give Newcastle and their fans, such confidence because, to go 2-0 down and to go down to 10 men and the comeback, it just shows. I remember Newcastle said in their statement, we're a family club, we've got strong traditions and, they're a proud club, and that performance was everything about Newcastle United.
It was, yeah. It was a full-blooded performance. And it started from before the game, the fans getting on top of it, obviously the occasion with everything surrounding it, but say 11v11, they were on top of Liverpool and gave them a real big scare. And then even when they went down to 10 men, the fight that they showed, the quality that they showed and the composure that they showed, even though they was down to 10 men, and to get back in it, and it was a lovely goal. Liverpool's winner, really, really good from the youngster, great finish. But I think Eddie will look at it as a whole and think, that was a good performance and we're in a good place. Yeah, can take plenty of positives. But will Alexander Isak be a Newcastle player or a Liverpool player come Monday evening? Right, still so much to get through here on Transfer Talk. Coming up, Kobbie Mainoo's future is in doubt. West Ham could be looking for another goalkeeper. Plus, Julien Laurent joins us. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back. West Ham are back in talks to sign Botafogo goalkeeper John Victor. They're understood to be discussing an initial loan that could become permanent if he manages to establish himself as the number one. The fee for the permanent aspect could be £6 million as West Ham look for more competition in goal following a disastrous start to the season. James, this is a bit of a nightmare situation because they bought in Hermansen over John Victor. Hasn't had a great start to the season. Areola comes in, makes a mistake yesterday. So, I mean, where do they go from here? Are they looking a bit silly now?
It does feel like a really strange situation on paper if they're looking for a goalkeeper to already replace Hermansen, considering he's only had 2 matches. And yes, it's been a really disappointing 2 matches in the Premier League for West Ham, conceding 8 goals. But surely you can't be writing him off after 2 matches. They'd have done so much homework on the player. And based on 2 performances, you surely can't be writing him off. It's whether or not he's coming in, Victor, John, if they can arrange a deal to compete with Hermansen and then Areola gets to move elsewhere, because I'm not sure Areola at this stage of his career wants to be a third-choice goalkeeper. And it just shows how quickly things move in football. 18 months ago, you'd be saying Alphonse Areola was one of the top goalkeepers in the Premier League, one of the most reliable goalkeepers. But things change and managers have different opinions on players, which sometimes as fans you don't necessarily agree with. It's clear they were looking for an upgrade on Areola in the summer, though. That's why they brought Hermansen in. But this makes sense in terms of value for money if they are able to get this deal done. So it's an interesting situation, though. It doesn't look great, does it?
No. Do you think so? If John Victor does come in, then is that to replace Areola? Do you think one of them has to go, and it's probably not going to be Mads Hermansen, who came in about 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think if you have 3 goalies who think and feel they should be number one, I think one of them will have to go, and just by denomination, I think it's Areola who will probably be looking to be seeking elsewhere.
As a defender, you want a solid, a stable goalkeeper who, one, you can rely on, but 2, you don't want chopping and changing, do you? That's the one position that you just want your number one. Yeah,
I think, especially as a defender, and you want a solid base. Even as a manager, you want the goalie and as much as you can defenders to be together and understand each other a lot and have that relationship. So I think they need this situation sorted as quickly as possible.
Yeah, it's an interesting one at West Ham. They're looking to sign multiple players before the deadline, including more than one midfielder. Songutu Magasa is scheduled into the UK today to undergo a medical with West Ham ahead of a £17.3 million move from Monaco. West Ham have also approached Nottingham Forest about initially loaning Ibrahim Sangare. I mean, James, one thing is clearly obvious from West Ham's opening few games, and that is that they absolutely need legs in midfield.
Yeah, and they're looking to sign multiple players before now a Monday evening. In terms of their midfield, the structure's not looked right so far in the opening 2 matches. Potter's changed it twice already. It went for Souček and Ward-Prowse against Chelsea, and that doesn't quite look right. So you want some legs in midfield, and all the reports about the player they're going to sign from Monaco, Sangare would be a great option as well for Nottingham Forest. But I think they need somebody who can come in and add a bit of presence in there. And they needed to sign a midfielder as well, because Edson Alvarez has gone to Fenerbahce on loan, so they needed to replace him as a defensive midfielder. I mean, there's question marks about whether Lucas Paquetá, whether there may be some bids that come in for him between now and the end of this transfer window. There are reports that Everton want to get Thomas Souček. Obviously, he's got that connection with David Moyes, who signed him back in 2020. 5.5 brilliant years of service from Thomas Souček. But with the goals he offers, with the threat he offers, with the presence he has, I don't think West Ham wants to let him go. And Graham Potter actually said yesterday he's incredibly important for the club and says he can't see him going anywhere. So Magasa has got this medical today. That looks like that'll be wrapped up quite quickly. I think that will be a good signing for them, but it does feel like they need plenty of work, and things just don't feel great there right now. I don't want to use the word toxic, but when you look at the scenes at the end of the match, things just really do not look good.
Yeah, they don't. They definitely need midfielders. So surely West Ham aren't in any position to be letting someone like Thomas Souček go?
No, you wouldn't think so. I think he's, like James said, he's 5.5 years that he's been at the club. He's been instrumental, really, and like not only with his goals, but I think off the pitch as well, with his connection with the fans and what he's done with the community stuff. He's really, really important to West Ham Football Club. I just think they're looking to try and find solutions for anything, just because of the start that they've had.
Yeah, I say they need midfielders. Maybe you also need centre-back as well, given the amount of goals they have conceded at the start of the season. It's a Wednesday, so it's now time to speak to European football expert Julien Laurent joins us. Julian, there's no argy-bargy this week, which is really, really sad. But one of our top stories is about Kobbie Mainoo, who could leave Manchester United this summer. Clubs in Europe interested as well. I know he's been linked with some Premier League clubs before, but, I mean, it feels like a weird one. Where could you see him going to?
Yeah, you're right, Liv. I think it's a bit strange in the sense that not that long ago he was the next big thing in English football, really, both at United and for England starting, doing really well. He's a player that is so gifted technically, clearly, there's no doubt. And maybe you can discuss what his best position is on the pitch, which is, I think, a fair debate. But there are indeed a few clubs in Europe, in France, in Italy and in Spain, who are looking at this situation, somebody who's not on big money currently because this is his first deal at United, who is not playing at all, not even a single second so far in the Premier League. So I think the only issue here is there's just not many days left in the transfer window, and I just don't understand why the situation is rumbling on now like it is, because United want to keep him, okay, but this is not a good situation for him. He doesn't play at all, and I think he could go somewhere else and be far happier on the pitch, but there's just not enough time, I think, left for him to be able to find another club.
Oh, it's an interesting one. It's a bit of a World Cup year as well. He's obviously going to want to play. I mean, it does look like exits at United are getting closer. Obviously, Rasmus Hojlund joined from Serie A. Now looks like he wants to go back to Serie A and Napoli. Is that a good fit?
Yeah, I think it would be good. I mean, for him, we can discuss it because he's obviously coming in because Romelu Lukaku got injured and he's out until December. So he's very much the replacement of that. But what happens to Hojlund when Lukaku comes back in December? I think in Conte's mind, unless Hojlund does exceptionally well between now and December, which might be the case if he joins Napoli, the number one is very much Lukaku in that position, and they would only play really with a striker because behind you've got De Bruyne and Scott McTominay, who are very important players for that team. So I'm not really sure where Hojlund fits past December, but for now, he almost went to Milan and in the end could not really find an agreement personally with them. But Napoli, I think, is a challenge that he wants to go to, and they certainly need a player like him to play up front. We saw Lorenzo Luca starting at the weekend away at Sassuolo, and that was not really that great. Hojlund is an upgrade on him, I think. But what kind of Hojlund would we see? Was it the one that was at Atalanta before signing to Man United, or the one that was so average at Man United?
Yeah, interesting. Arsenal trying to add another defender. Mikel Arteta loves a defender, doesn't he? What do you make of Pierre Hincapié potentially joining the Gunners?
Great talent, and very much Mikel Arteta kind of signing, 23 years old, who can play left back, left centre back, left-footed centre back. He's very good on the ball, very comfortable, great in duels. He's one of the defenders in Bundesliga last season that won the most duels with Bayer Leverkusen. So a very solid, a very good option with only a year left on his contract, so he won't be too expensive. The thing is, Arsenal need to let some of their defenders go first before even thinking about making that deal for Hincapié. We know that Kiwior is getting closer to a move to Porto, which is, I think, a good thing for him and for Porto. He's a very good centre-back. There's just not enough game time for him at Arsenal. And then maybe if Kiwior goes as a loan with an option to buy of around 30 million euros, then I think Hincapié could then come in the other way. But before Hincapié can sign for Arsenal, they need to let some of the defenders go.
Yeah, absolutely. And deadline day is fast approaching, just 5 days away now. Is there any deals or moves that you're excited about, Julian?
Yeah, I heard you talking about West Ham and Souček. Magasa, the young player from Monaco. So good to Magasa. I think he's on his way. 17 million euros plus 3 in bonuses. He's a central midfielder that can play as a centre-back as well. He's very young. He's very raw still. But I think he's a good signing for West Ham. Maybe not for now. And the problem is they need reinforcement for now. But more for the future. Yeah, maybe Yeremi Pino as well to Crystal Palace, the replacement for Eberechi Eze. Very different style of player. Had a really good season last year at Villarreal. The one before had a bad injury, but at 30 million euros, I think this is a good deal for Crystal Palace. And there's obviously still talks between City and PSG for Donnarumma. And this one is, at the moment, a bit of a just not moving forward too much. They're not agreeing on what the transfer fee should be for Donnarumma with a year left on his contract. And still Adrien Rabiot, who's, remember the argy-bargy from last week? He's still very much on the transfer list at Marseille. You see, I can always place my argy-bargy somewhere. And Tottenham and West Ham are quite keen on Rabiot. I still think that he could stay at Marseille, though.
Ah, love an argy-bargy, don't you, Julian? Thank you so much, as always.
Thank you. Cheers.
Right, there is loads still to come this lunchtime on Transfer Talk. Will Mark Guehi move to Liverpool? Could we see Ederson depart Manchester City? Plenty discussed with Charlie and James in a couple of minutes. Welcome back. It's time for our ones to watch. Could we see late moves for these players? Behind me right here. So, Charlie, we are going to start with Mark Guehi.
Yep.
And a lot of talk this summer about whether he goes on a free next summer. Do you think he will still be a Crystal Palace player come Monday evening?
That's a great question.
Put you right
yeah,
on the spot there.
again, I think if Liverpool identify him as a target and they really want him, especially with going on 4 fronts this season, I think they will try the best that they can to get him. But again, I think if Palace could get that central defender in, then they might allow him to go. Again, with 1 year left on his contract, you think Palace should really cash in if he's not going to sign a new deal. But then Palace have to weigh it up and decide. But I think there will be an enormous amount of pressure from Liverpool to sign Guehi.
Do you think it's maybe heightened a little bit because of Liverpool's defensive performances so far this season?
Probably added on a few millions, yeah. It's probably added on a few millions to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's, especially after, say, Monday and everything around it. So
yeah.
I think there'll be a lot of pressure, a lot of conversations going on, but I'm sure Liverpool will be trying to get the deal over the line. But I think Palace will have to get someone in before they allow Mark Guehi to go.
Yeah, James, what about Ederson then? That's another interesting one because Pep came out and said he was his number one and then played James Trafford again on the weekend.
I find it really interesting because we were briefed last week that he's seen as Manchester City's number one. They're keen for him to stay. But as you mentioned, he was fit to play the weekend and James Trafford started it in goal. So is James Trafford now the number one? There is interest from Galatasaray and clubs in the Turkish Super League. And interestingly, their transfer window closes on September the 12th. So there is a chance that he moves after September the 1st. But would City want to be in a situation whereby Ederson leaves and they're left with James Trafford and Stefan Ortega? I think plenty of clubs in the Premier League would be happy with that situation. But our understanding is that they'd be looking to find a replacement for Ederson. And that's why there has been discussion around Donnarumma potentially coming in. What would that mean for James Trafford? I think they're in a good position if Ederson leaves without signing another goalkeeper. And it would be good to see Trafford given the opportunity, having returned to the club. But it's fascinating. These rumours don't seem to go away when it comes to Ederson. It's been like this for the last 18 months, and it certainly feels like his future is uncertain, especially as he's not starting for City.
Yeah, another player whose future is definitely uncertain is Alejandro Garnacho, Charlie. I mean, it feels like he only wants Chelsea. But as a young player, there's so much potential there. If he doesn't go to Chelsea, then what for him?
Well, that's a big question. I'm sure his advisors will have a plan in place, and like James said, there is windows still open. So I'm guessing that's where he may end up if he wants to play, because, like you say, his heart is set on Chelsea. But if that doesn't materialise, then what's next for him?
Yeah, the clubs are still quite far away in terms of valuation for Alejandro Garnacho, but whether he'll be a Manchester United player, a Chelsea player, or go somewhere else, we will wait and see. James, what about Harvey Elliott? Had a brilliant summer for England under 21s, and I suppose ahead of a World Cup, surely he wants to be playing more regular football.
You would think so, and he's not been featuring so far that much for Liverpool. It's early days, but I think it's 1 minute in the Premier League. He came on in the dying stages against Newcastle. You'd think, based on what he did in the summer in particular, he was player of the tournament, wasn't he, at the Euros in the summer. He is still just 22, we forget, because he's been on the scene since he came on the scene with Fulham at the age of 16. You forget he is still so young. So another season at Liverpool isn't the worst thing, but perhaps he feels that he's at this point in his career now, despite being so young, that he needs to be starting for a club. He needs to be an important part of the club. And clearly signing Florian Wirtz means his minutes are going to be even more limited. Szoboszlai's there as well. An unbelievable assist. I know he didn't touch the ball, but incredible what he did.
He should have got an assist for that, shouldn't he?
It was remarkable. And you'd think that he's third in the pecking order when it comes to those players. He's not going to replace Salah. He's not really a left-sided option. But there was contact that RB Leipzig made with Liverpool earlier on this summer. Doesn't look like that's materialised so far. You want to see him play football this season, especially with that World Cup in mind. If he can play more minutes, he'll put himself bang in contention. But right now, it's going to be difficult. I think Liverpool are expecting full offers, whether or not anything happens between now and the deadline. I think Arne Slot would be delighted to have him. Yeah. It's just whether or not Harvey Elliott would be delighted with the amount of minutes he's going to get this season.
Yeah, and another sort of, I suppose, central midfielder is Conor Gallagher. There's been reports linking him back to Palace. I mean, that'd be a brilliant signing for Palace. We've already seen what he can do there. Yeah,
I think that's a great fit. I think with the way that he played there when he went on loan, I think with the way that the fans adored him when he was there, I think it's going to be a great move if it does come off. And I'm sure Conor would be delighted to be back in the Prem and playing for Palace.
Yeah, I think I was a little bit gutted when he left the Premier League anyway, Conor Gallagher, and he left Chelsea. Anyway, let's get to Manchester United now, shall we? Because they are expecting offers for midfielder Kobbie Mainoo amid growing interest from the Premier League and in Europe as well. I mean, Charlie, it's a little bit of a weird one that we're sat here talking about Kobbie Mainoo potentially leaving United.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because they say what he done last season and how well he played for the Man United side. You think he'd be pushing himself and probably playing more minutes than what he has done. So I'm sure him being a young Man United fan, he wants to play for Man United as much as he can. But with it being a World Cup year now, again, he's trying to force himself into that England squad. So he may have to find himself going somewhere else. And I'm sure there will be plenty of suitors in the Premier League and around Europe who would gladly take him.
I mean, yeah. Brilliant midfielder, and we saw that for Man United and England at times. Do you think he'll end up leaving Manchester United in this window?
I think it's really difficult. I think he's open to moving because of the limited options he's going to have this season. The club are expecting offers for him. It does feel like his minutes are going to be limited under Ruben Amorim, and Amorim suggested that he's a direct rival for Bruno Fernandes, and Fernandes started all but 5 of their 60 matches last season, so it feels unlikely he's going to get many opportunities there. And United aren't in Europe this season, so there is limited game time. It'll be really interesting to see whether he plays against Grimsby tonight in the Carabao Cup. And the fact is, Amorim doesn't feel that he has the mobility to play alongside Bruno Fernandes, and that has been a criticism aimed at Kobbie Mainoo. United have actively been looking to sign a midfielder in this transfer window, so things don't look great in terms of Kobbie Mainoo's short-term options at Manchester United. But we know things can change very quickly with injuries. Anything can happen in this transfer window. But I think United letting go of Kobbie Mainoo would represent a real problem for the club and for the fan base, because I think the club and the fans have been very supportive of Ruben Amorim because they appreciate there does need to be a culture shift, there does need to be a reset, and that's why they can understand why Marcus Rashford needed to be frozen out and needed to leave. They can understand the Alejandro Garnacho situation, 2 academy graduates who are no longer part of the first team picture. But for Kobbie Mainoo, whilst it's clear that he's slipped down the pecking order at Manchester United, it leaves them in a really difficult position when it comes to academy graduates and their opportunities in the United first team. United have such a proud record. They talk about this all the time, having an academy graduate in every senior matchday squad. It's a record that goes back all the way to 1937, and currently that record, it went up to 4,323 games on Sunday, with Kobbie Mainoo on the bench alongside Tyler Fredrickson. If Alejandro Garnacho departs and Kobbie Mainoo goes, there's a real danger that record is under threat. I'm not saying Ruben Amorim should be thinking about that, but from a club perspective, that would be really, really disappointing because the academy is such an important part of United for a number of reasons. If Mainoo goes, then it would be a sad day for United fans, I think.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah,
Charlie?
I agree with that. I think it's the culture at Man United. Like James said, they speak about it all the time, and for it to 4,000, 3,000 games, that has to be implemented, I think, from the top down. And I'm sure Almiron knows definitely about it, and I'm sure that tradition will carry on. But like you said, it's a shame if Mainoo goes, but on the flip side, it's an opportunity for another youngster to come in and hopefully stamp there and break through into the first team. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, elsewhere, Napoli will hold talks with Manchester United today as they look to finalise a deal for striker Rasmus Hojlund. 2 other clubs, one from England and one from Germany, made late inquiries for Hojlund, but he's made it clear he does want to go to Napoli. He's ready to travel to Naples. He's at the airport. He's not at the airport, but once the club can agree on the move. I mean, Charlie, Rasmus came from Serie A. We spoke to Julien Laurent about it as well. And I suppose just trying to rediscover your best form, it sort of maybe makes sense to go back to the club that got you that big move to Man United.
100%. Yeah, I think it's where he feels most comfortable. And like he said, where he's had the most success in his footballing career. So he wants to go back to Serie A and he probably rediscover the form and probably enjoy football what he was before. So if it can get done, I'm sure all parties, I think, will be happy.
Yeah. Absolutely. Right, still to come on Transfer Talk, we'll turn our focus to Charlie's former club, Bournemouth, and it's been a big summer of change. Welcome back. Just a little line to bring you. Celtic are in talks to sign Hammarby IF winger Sebastian Tunecki. It's understood the Scottish champions' opening bid of £2.6 million has been rejected. Hammarby are looking for a fee in the region of £5 million for the Tunisia international. The Swedish club are not believed to be looking to sell the 23-year-old unless their valuation is met. Elsewhere, Galatasaray are in talks with Tottenham Hotspur over a deal for Yves Bissouma. The Turkish club are proposing an initial loan with an obligation to buy. And James, when you look at Spurs' options, it does feel like they might be OK if they do let Yves Bissouma go.
Yeah, that feels like one area of the pitch where they'll actually be all right if Bissouma goes. And we need to bear in mind Bissouma isn't part of the first-team squad right now. He's training in the first-team squad, but he's not been in the match-day squad because he's been late for training on numerous occasions. Thomas Frank called him out in the press conference ahead of the Super Cup. And if you're doing that in the very early stages under a new manager, it's not a great look whatsoever. So it doesn't feel like there's a path back for him, really. And when you sign a player like João Palhinha, one of the best tacklers in the Premier League, he scored at the weekend as well. They do have a number of options there. I know Lucas Bergvall is a different type of player from Paulinho, but he can play in the two. Archie Gray can play there as well. Bentancur's an option. So I think they'll be OK. And he's got 1 year left in his contract. It would make sense if they try to line up a departure for him right now. It does feel like his time at Spurs is over.
Charlie, were you ever late for training?
Yeah, a couple of times, but not my fault. Listen, I think every player throughout their career has been late once or twice. Yeah. But I just say is for a player to do it consistently, it's a tough position from a manager's point of view. And it's like I say, with 1 year left on his contract, it's probably best for all parties if that deal was to happen.
Then what about Spurs? Obviously, they missed out. That's the midfield sort of. We think they're going to be OK. Obviously, in those forward positions, Richarlison's keeping Solanke outside. That looks OK. But when they missed out on a Bere Eze, Charlie, do you still feel like they need a number 10, especially, playing Champions League football as well?
Yeah, I think there's room for one more for Spurs. There's been obviously talks of Savinho maybe come in, but I'm sure that they'll be looking to recruit someone, especially James Maddison being out for a long while and losing Son. There is a space for someone. It's just finding that right someone who fits the way that Spurs want to play.
James, do you think they're going to find someone to as in a replacement almost for Bere Eze, who they nearly signed?
I think they definitely will sign someone. They're looking for a number 10 and a winger, and I think they're in a position where they do need to do something, because Pap Sarr, who I didn't mention earlier on, who's more of a defensive midfielder, has been used as a number 10 at times, and he's done really well. He's done really well over the course of the last few weeks. But with Maddison out injured, Kulusevski, when's he going to be back? They are in a situation where they need options. I think they're OK on the flanks. I think Kudos has been a real... I've been surprised by how good he's been over the course of the last few weeks, because he looks like he's really going to work hard for Thomas Frank as well. Maybe he's going to be the next Brian Mbeumo for Thomas Frank. It's a bold shout, but
maybe, a big old shout,
maybe he will
James.
be. But they clearly are looking for a number 10. Thomas Frank made it clear. They missed out on Morgan Gibbs-White, no Eze either. A couple of players they're looking at right now, but for Spurs, they're just struggling to close out some of these deals. It's difficult when Arsenal come in to bid for the same players, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think Arsenal will be bidding for any more players that they want, so they might be OK to get through over the line. Yeah, maybe. Right, we've got 5 minutes left, so it's a perfect time, Charlie, to talk about your old club, Bournemouth. What have you made of their window so far? They lost a couple of big players, especially across the back line, but they've also brought in some players as well.
Yeah, it's been a very busy transfer period, for Bournemouth, and losing the players that they have. But if you look at the money that they've got in for them, and you look at the teams that they have gone to, I don't think anyone could stand in anybody's way. And what they've done, and I know from personal speaking to people at the club, what they've done is done their due diligence on a lot of players. They've scouted a lot of players, and the people that they've brought in, I think has done really well. And it's just trying to get them settled as quickly as they can. It's like I say that the goalkeepers changed, 3 of the back 4 have changed. That takes time. That takes a process to really embed them in. And they've started the season okay. I do like Tuferet. I think as a left back, I think he's been really good signing for them. I think he started the season really well, and I think it's going to be going on to bigger and better things. Bournemouth. You look at the whole transfer policy and the way clubs run. Bournemouth have run it really well. They have run really well because they've been really active in terms of getting these replacements in when players are departed. I think the best example was last summer when Solanke was going to go. Evan Nielsen was through the door a week after. So they very much know they've got some top players that will depart, but it's having those next ones lined up. And these young players coming in know that if they do well at Bournemouth,
then Bournemouth won't stand in their way if big clubs come in. But in terms of Antoine Semenyo, who's been incredible, could that be the best bit of business they've done this summer, tying him down to a five-year deal?
I think so. Keeping like your I know you lost 3 of the back 4, and his big players going. But keeping Semenyo, I think, is a massive deal that they've done, and just seeing him against Liverpool just shows how immensely he's regarded at the football club.
Yeah, and the job that Iraola's done already has been absolutely brilliant.
Fantastic, yeah. You know, he's a manager who just doesn't cause too much fuss, just gets on with what he has, and knows what he wants out of the players, and you can see Bournemouth are just going from strength to strength.
Got a couple of minutes left, so Charlie, I want to talk more about you. Just first of all, how do you look back on your time spent at Bournemouth?
You know, with great fondness. You know, we fortunate enough to be in a team that was such a good moment in the football club. You know, getting 2 promotions, playing in the Premier League for 4 or 5 seasons, and unfortunately getting a bad injury which made me leave the football club. But overall, we had so much success, playing so many times. Some great people at the football club, and see what it's built up to now, and with the training ground and the Vitality Stadium now getting redeveloped. You know, it's a nice feeling to be a part of it.
I bet you wish you were there when that training ground got done, didn't you?
Yeah, we have spoke about that a few times. Not only me, but there's a few other people as well who said it.
What about, just give us a little insight as to what you're doing now, and what are your ambitions going forward?
Yeah, so currently I'm Watford under-21 head coach.
Whose boss are you?
I'm Dan Gosling, who's on a... Dan Gosling's boss, which is always nice.
Have his boss on the show.
Yeah, we're going to have your boss on
exactly,
coming up.
So it's always nice there to say that. But so I'm doing that, and I'm currently on my pro license, and which has been very good. You know, learning a lot, and just trying to develop myself to be the best coach that I can be.
Did you always want to be a coach? Was it a big decision, when you stopped playing football, what you wanted to do? Because sometimes I know people are at a crossroads, aren't they? What made you want to be a coach?
I think Eddie Howe was a big part of it. You know, learning, watching, and knowing how he developed me and how he made me a better player really got me the impetus to go into coaching. And from that, it started to grow, and started writing down sessions, and fortunate enough to take sessions while I was still playing, and kind of got into it that way. And just the journey started from there, really. And
just quickly before we let you go, what's your experience been like at Watford?
It's been really good. You know, I've gone from being a part-time coach to under-18s to now under-21. So the pathway's been really good for me, and just learning, and now obviously new manager in Paolo in, and learning from him, and another new way of playing. So it's good for me to learn from everyone who's become the first team manager. But ultimately, one day, hopefully, I can get to becoming a head coach.
Well, we would love to see that. Thank you so much, Charlie. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you to you as well, James. Right, Good Morning Transfers returns for you tomorrow. You can see that at 9 a.m. Former Wales international Ashley Williams is our studio guest. But Transfer Talk returns at midday tomorrow. And the Transfer Show is here at 4 and 7 p.m. tonight. Coming up, we will have plenty more on Alexander Isak at Arsenal, bolstering their defence as well. All that's coming up in a couple of minutes.